Okay, so I'm going to take a look at the quiz review for 7.1, 7.2, reviewing properties of exponents. So the first property that we learned about was the product rule. So just over on the side, I'm going to take a quick note about what that was. Product rule, product means multiply. So the product rule is when we have like x raised to an exponent times the same base raised to a different exponent. We can simplify this by adding those exponents together. So let's put that into practice. So I have m to the fourth and 2m squared. Well, first I need to deal with coefficients. This is 1 times 2, so I keep my 2. And then m to the fourth, m to the second, 4 plus 2 gives me m to the sixth. Okay, number 2. I'm first going to multiply my coefficients. I have negative 3 times 5, which gives me a negative 15. And then I have v to the third and v to the sixth. 3 plus 6 gives me v to the ninth. All right. Here I have a negative 1 and a 3. So negative 1 times 3 gives me a coefficient of negative 3. This is a y to the 1 and a y to the 1. So y to the 1 plus 1 is y squared. And I have x squared and x squared, which gives me x to the fourth. It is important that this coefficient stays in front. I know some people think that, like, I've seen some people think that this is like a 3x and they have to stay together, but these are all being multiplied, so the order really doesn't matter. So we always want to have that coefficient coming first, okay? All right, and number 4, this one's a little bit more complex because I'm actually adding and multiplying. So if we remember order of operations, PEMDAS, we actually multiply and divide first. So I'm going to ignore this first part. I'm just going to drop it down, and I'm going to multiply this. So when I multiply, I'm going to multiply these coefficients together. 4 times 2 gives me 8. And then I have a to the third, and there's no a over here, so I just have a to the third. Then next would be b. I have a b squared, no b over here, so I just have b squared. And then I have c to the third and c to the first, so that gives me c to the fourth. So in order to add monomials together, they have to have the same base, so I want to check that out. So I have a to the third, b to the second, c over here. Oh, whoops, I made a mistake. This should be c to the fourth. So I have a to the third, b to the second, c to the fourth, and a to the third, b to the second, c to the fourth. These are the same, so I can add these coefficients together. So 2 plus 8 gives me 10, and you keep the base. A to the third, b to the second, c to the fourth. All right, we're going to move on to the next rule. This is the quotient rule. Quotient means division. So when we're dividing, like if I have x to the a over x to the b, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the exponents. So I have x to the a minus b, top minus bottom. So here I have n to the fourth over n squared. So I'm going to do 4 minus 2, and I get n squared. Next, first I need to divide my coefficients. So I have a negative 3 divided by 3. That gives me a negative 1. Then I have x to the first and x to the second. 1 minus 2 gives me an x to the negative 1. Then I have 2 minus 2, that's y to the 0, so these cancel each other out. And 5 minus 3 gives me z squared. Now, if we have already learned that we cannot actually have a negative exponent in our final answer, it's not simplified. So if I have a negative, I just need to move it to the denominator. So when I rewrite this, I'm going to keep the negative 1 and the z squared on top. And on bottom, I'm going to have x to the positive 1. Since I moved it, it changes to positive. And now my answer is finished. Okay, moving to number 7. First, I'm going to divide my coefficients. 35 divided by 7 is 5. A to the third over a to the second. 3 minus 2 gives me a to the first, or just a. And then b to the third over b to the first gives me b squared. And I cannot simplify this further, so I'm done. Finally, over here, I'm going to divide my coefficients. Negative 2 divided by 16, that actually won't divide, but I can simplify the fraction. both negative 2 and 16 are divisible by 2. So I end up with negative 1 over 8. Then I have c to the 12th over c to the 4th. 12 minus 4 is 8. So I have c to the 8th. And then d to the 4th over d to the 1st. 4 minus 1 is 3. So I have d to the 3rd. And that's my final answer. It's okay to have a negative number. It's not okay to have a negative exponent. Moving on to the power rule. The power rule says that if I have a number raised to an exponent and then I have that raised to another power, I have to multiply these together, distribute and multiply. So I end up with x to the a times b. I'm multiplying. So here I have a 4n squared, all raised to the third. So this third power needs to be distributed to everything, including the 4. So I have 4 to the third, which is 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. And n squared to the third, 2 times 3, gives me n to the 6th. On number 10, here I have this whole thing being raised to the 0. And I know that anything raised to the 0 equals 1. So the answer here is just 1. Okay, number 11, I have this entire thing cubed, so I'm going to pass out the 3. Now once again, be careful when you have negatives, so you would want to plug this in your calculator as negative 3 in parentheses cubed, which means I have negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9, times negative 3 is a negative 27. And then p to the 4 times 3 gives me p to the 12th. Next, I have this is all being raised to the 5th, so I'd pass that out. This is just going to stay the same. So I have 5a to the 4th, and then 6 to the 5th. I'm going to use my calculator for that. I get time. I want to make sure I'm multiplying. These parentheses mean we're multiplying. I'll just use a dot here. I get 7,776, and then a to the 3 times 5 is a to the 15. This can be further simplified because I can multiply my coefficients together. So I do 5 times 7,776, and I get 38,880, and then I can simplify these a's. A to the 4 plus 15 gives me a to the 19th. All right, on this last set, we're going to be using all the properties plus the negative exponent rule to simplify. So that just means that we can't have a final answer with a negative exponent, so we have to simplify by moving those negative exponents either from top to bottom or bottom to top. So here I have 2nm to the negative 5th and nm all squared. So what I need to do first is power rule. I need to pass this out. This stays the same, so I have 2nm to the negative 5th, and then I have n squared, m squared. Well, I have an n to the first here and an n squared, so I can use product rule to add those exponents. My 2 stays the same. I now have n to the third, and then also my m's can be simplified. I have negative 5 and 2, so negative 5 plus 2 gives me m to the negative third. Well, I can't have this negative exponent in my final answer, so this has to move to the bottom. So when I rewrite, I'm going to have a top and a bottom. This will stay on top, 2n to the third, and this will go to the bottom, and when it does, it becomes positive. All right, 14, first I need to pass out this negative 2 to the negative 2 and to the 4. So here I have a negative 2 to the negative 2. Well, what that means is that you could just write that as negative 2 to the negative 2, but when I have a number to the negative 2, I really just need to send it to the bottom, really. So I really have 1 over 2 to the positive 2. I just moved that to the bottom, and this is still negative, negative 2 squared. I just moved it to the bottom. Now here I have y to the 4th times negative 2, so I have y to the negative 8. And then over here there's nothing being distributed. I'm just going to keep 2x to the 4th, y to the 5th. Okay, so now I see that I have y and y, so these can be combined using product rule. And then I have this coefficient, I can kind of add that over here. So what I end up with, this is positive exponent, so I have 2 over negative 2 squared. And then I have negative 8 plus 5, which gives me y to the negative third, and then this x to the fourth stays the same. So still not finished here. This negative 3 has to be moved to the bottom. I already have a fraction formed, so I'm just going to add it in there, and I'm also going to add this x. This is going to go up top because it's positive. So what I have is 2x to the fourth on top over negative 2 squared y to the third. And you can actually take this one step further because this is like 2 to the 1. So if I do 1 minus 2, I get 2 to the negative, I get 2 to the negative 1. So I can basically just cancel this out, and I'm left with, you know what, it might be easier to explain this if I actually multiply this out. So that's what I'm going to do. Negative 2 squared will give me negative 2 times negative 2. So on the bottom here, I have a negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. So now I think it's easier to see how this simplifies. So 2/4 simplifies to 1/2. So I have 1x to the fourth over 2y to the third. That one was pretty complex. I do not believe there's one that complex on your quiz. So there's just a lot to it. Okay, moving on to 15. There's nothing to distribute. Let's see if I can simplify by dividing. It doesn't look like I can. And nothing is negative, it appears. So I'm confused of what needs to be done. I'm wondering if my copy is not showing a negative exponent where there should be one. So I'm going to try and check this. Okay, quiz review. Oh, I see. My y is cut off. So you should have a negative 2y squared w to the fifth over 3y to the sixth. That was the problem. Okay, so I can first deal with my coefficients. Negative 2 over 3. That actually can't simplify. So I still have a negative 2 over 3. Then I have y to the 2 minus 6, which gives me y to the negative 4. And then I just have w to the fifth. So when I simplify this, this y to the negative 4 has to go to the bottom. This y to the fifth, since it's positive, it will stay on top. So when I rewrite this, I already have a bottom and a top here. My top has negative 2, and now it has w to the fifth. And on bottom, I have 3y to the fourth. That 4 becomes positive because I moved it to the bottom from the top. Okay? And here we have our last one. This is not being raised to any power, so I can just rewrite it. This is being all cubed. So negative 7 cubed, I have negative 7 times negative 7 times negative 7. That's 3 negative, so it's going to stay negative. And that'll be a negative 343. I'm going to multiply here, so I don't think that I'm subtracting. This is being multiplied. And then negative 2 times 3 gives me an a to the negative sixth. And b to the 1 times 3 gives me b to the third. So now let's see if I can use product rule here. I do have a to the 1 and a to the negative 6. And I'm going to pull my coefficient in front. So I have negative 343. A to the 1 plus negative 6 gives me a negative 5. I have a b to the fourth and a b to the third. So 4 plus 3 is 7. So I have b to the seventh. And then I just have a c to the 1. So in order to simplify this, I need to move this negative exponent to the bottom. This will all stay on top. Now, even though this 343 is negative, it doesn't have a negative exponent. That's why it is not moving. So when I rewrite this on top, I have negative 343, b to the 7th, c, over a to the positive 5. It's staying positive. It's becoming positive because I moved it to the bottom. And that is it for the quiz review. This is very, very, very similar to your actual quiz, so make sure you study this and use it as a reference over the next couple of days.